Hi, today I'm going to talk about why I decided to take a 30-day break from YouTube this year. So, in the early summer of 2026, I decided to take a break from YouTube that almost lasted about a month. And during this time period, the only moments I was on YouTube was mainly to upload a video that I made. But other than that, I really wanted to make a conscious decision to not stay on the app to doom scroll. So while I do love YouTube and it has helped me to start my content creation journey, I do think that sometimes it can be a bit of a distraction when it's not used with intentionality. But before I delve into this topic, hi, I'm 𝐓𝐈𝐌𝐿𝐄𝐒, and on this channel, I talk about self development and educational content. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I hope you stick around. So, to give a bit of a context, I started making YouTube videos in September of 2024. And prior to becoming a content creator, I was consuming YouTube a lot. And at the time, I didn't feel like the time I would spend on YouTube consuming content affected me. But that changed ever since I started making videos on YouTube. So the thing is, when you're a new content creator, and this is something that I noticed happened to me, I don't know if that's something that you relate to, if let's say you're a content creator as well, but when you're new on YouTube and you're doing content creation, what tends to happen is that you put this pressure, we tend to put this pressure on ourselves to make sure that our video are performing and that our videos are getting engagement, right? And when that doesn't happen according to how we expect it to, let's say, you post a video and the video is not performing the way you want it to, you start to put that pressure on yourself and you start to question why you're not getting engagement. And that's what I was doing to myself. Like at the beginning when I was new to content creation, I had that mindset of like, okay, if I post a video and it's not engaging the way I want it to, there must be something wrong and something I need to correct immediately. And while it's good to be ambitious that way and it's good to have high expectations for yourself, at looking back, I feel like I was doing a disservice to myself because usually when you're new to content creation, it's all about learning. It's all about learning what topics you want to talk about in your channel. It's all about talking about things that are very passionate to you, and you want to create videos that you feel like people can resonate with and videos that could be helpful to others, right? So this brings us to some of the key reasons why I decided to take a break from YouTube early in the summer. So the first reason was really to just reduce my screen time, right? So the thing is, I noticed that when I would stay on YouTube, I would spend hours on YouTube a day consuming content. Let's say if initially my intention was just to stay on the app to maybe watch a video or two, that ended up transitioning into me consuming hours of content on YouTube per day, right? And the thing about YouTube, while I do believe that YouTube has great educational content and really, really informative videos out there that are helpful, right? At the end, it's designed to make you stay on it for hours and hours and hours, right? And that's what I was noticing was happening to me. I feel like YouTube, when you're not using it with intentionality, it kind of becomes a slippery slope when you're not putting time limits on the amount of time you're spending on it to scroll endlessly, right? And that's why I really wanted to take a break because I wanted to reclaim my time back. I wanted to see, okay, how am I going to be when I'm not on the app? Is it possible? Because again, it was the first time I decided to even be absent from YouTube for 30 days. Like I never thought I could do it and I did it. Right. So yeah, I think one of the main reasons that really drove me to really take that break was because I wanted to reclaim my time back. I wanted to reduce my screen time. So the second reason why I took a break from YouTube was to really avoid being trapped in comparison. So circling back to what I was saying earlier about how when you're a new content creation, a new content creator, you can, put pressure on yourself to make sure that your videos are getting engagement. Well, following up with that, what I would notice about me when I was like new to content creation, and I still am relatively, but at that time in 2024, when I was new to content creation, and I would see other content creators get a lot of engagement on their videos, and my videos weren't getting that, I would start to like compare myself, and it got to a point where I had to really you know, look inwardly and say, okay, look, at the end of the day, you're new on your journey and you don't know about this other person's journey. It's like I was comparing chapter 1 of my life to somebody else's chapter 60, right? Which is why I don't really believe that comparison even makes sense. And let's say for the sake of argument, you're like, yeah, but what do you mean? Like sometimes people they get very successful as something very quickly, right? Maybe something that takes you maybe years to develop and you become an expert at it, somebody else that can take like a month for that person to become an expert at it. So that I'd say yes, comparison still wouldn't make sense, because even if for you it took you years to develop that skill and for the other person it took them maybe a month, at the end of the day you don't know what that person had to go through to get that success. Maybe before they became successful in that field and it took them a month, maybe they were trying to navigate what they wanted to do as a career in their life. They didn't know what path to take and it took them years to think about what they wanted to do in their life. But as soon as they had that epiphany and as soon as they found out what they wanted to be good at and what they were passionate about, then it became very easy for them to thrive in that field. So that's why I really believe that comparison in and of itself, it's really not helpful. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to take that break. I wanted to just really declutter the amount of time I spent on social media to really look inwardly and focus more on why initially I wanted to create my channel and what was the purpose behind it. So, the next reason why I took a break from YouTube is because I couldn't think clearly anymore the longer I was spending time on it. So, the thing is, because YouTube is a long form video platform, what tends to happen is, again, like the longer you spend time on it, the more you basically start to feel like your mind is saturated with other people's ideas and you can no longer hear your inner voice. And that was what was happening to me when I would spend so many hours consuming content from other people about how to live your life. And I know this is coming from a self-development content creator, but hear me out. The point I'm trying to make here is that when you're getting recommended so many videos by other people on YouTube, it gets to a point where, yes, although the videos are helpful, at the end of the day, you get into this analysis paralysis because so many people are telling you what to do to the point where you don't even know how to apply the advice you got in the real world. Because you're spending so much time on YouTube, it's like you forget to go out, touch grass, interact with your friends, and just get out of that bubble, right? And that's what was happening to me. I would spend so much time on YouTube. I'll give an example. When I was new in the beginning of my content creation journey, I was consuming videos about how to get engagement from YouTube from content creators experts. And let's say, for example, I watched one video where this content creator would explain the roadmap as to how to basically increase your engagement and grow your channel, and they will give specific instructions. Well, if I ended up coming across another content creator, they would basically give a completely different list of instructions that would debunk the other content creators' instructions, to the point where it became so overwhelming, and it felt like there was just so much external noise, and just my mind was oversaturated with other people's ideas. So that's why I felt like I needed to ultimately take a break from the app, because I just wanted to be able to hear myself think, and just be guided by my intuition. I think sometimes we want to get instruction on how to improve or how to live our lives and stuff like that. But it's also important, and while there's nothing wrong with that, it's also sometimes important to be guided by your inner compass and be guided by your inner voice. It doesn't always have to be what somebody else tells you. If you're watching this video, I would be so happy if, let's say, after you finish watching this video, you are guided to do something different, and you're guided by your own voice to do something different for yourself if what I'm saying doesn't apply to you, right? So I think that that's the thing. It's important, like while we're consuming content online, it's also important to say, okay, I heard what this person had to say, but am I applying it into my life? Or if I'm not applying it, how am I listening to my inner voice to be guided to do something that works for me? And that's where I think taking a break can be helpful. The next reason why I took a break from YouTube is because I noticed that it affected my creativity the longer I spent time on it. So the thing is, let's say I would be on YouTube, scrolling on YouTube for hours, and I stumble upon a content creator talking about a topic. In my mind, I'll be like, if this content creator talked about this particular topic and they got that engagement, maybe I could also try that out in my channel and see how it goes. And while there's nothing wrong with being inspired by others and, being inspired by others to talk about something that maybe you didn't think about, I do think that the longer I would spend time on YouTube, it really didn't allow me to focus on topics I wanted to talk about at the end of the day, right? For example, there I would stumble upon some instructions, like let's say some content creators, they'll give tips on how to grow your channel. They'll say things like, oh, go on Google Trends and look at topics that are trending and talk about that topic. If I did that, I noticed it didn't really have generate the same effect on my channel as it did theirs. And that's why it's really important, like I was saying earlier, to honestly, yes, you can get advice from people, see if it works, but at the end of the day, be guided by your inner voice. So the thing is, when it comes to creativity, at the end of the day, taking that break, it was really to remember why I decided to create my YouTube channel at the end of the day. Right? When you're creating content and you're talking about topics that you are passionate about, that should be why you're making videos, right? That should be your ulterior motivation that inspires you to wake up every day, create content, and talk about topics that you're passionate about. It's because you want to share your content and attract like-minded people. You want people to resonate with the things you're saying, and you want to be authentic and unapologetically you, right? And that is something I have to remind myself, and I still remind myself every day. And even if I'm not perfect, like I still try to apply that mindset and remind myself of that when I decide to make a video on YouTube. So that's something that helped me when I took the break. I wanted to really remember why I was creating my channel in the first place. What was the purpose of creating my channel? And when I started to ask myself those questions, I remembered that, okay, the reason why I launched my channel and the reason why I'm making videos is because I want to give tips and advice from my life experiences that I wish somebody would have told me 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, I didn't have a lot of people giving me life advice, especially as a teenager. I had to navigate life based on intuition. And yes, like obviously my parents gave me tips, but fundamentally, I had to really figure things out on my own. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to create my videos and launch this channel, really to give advice I wish somebody would have told me years ago. So the next reason why I took a break from YouTube is because I had to transition from being a consumer to a content creator. So when you are new to content creation, and if let's say you're watching this video and you can relate, like you would notice that content creation is a full-time job. It takes so much energy and effort to do content creation. So the more you shift from this role of being a consumer to a content creator, you start to allocate more time towards creating video ideas, topics, filming a video, editing your video, designing your thumbnail, and you are shifting more from a consumer to a content creator, right? And you're allocating more time towards creating content, which is something that happens naturally, right? So in the past, as I was saying, in the past, before I was a content creator, I would consume a lot of videos, right? And it wasn't something that I thought too much about. But I think when I became a content creator, I became more conscious of the amount of time I would spend on YouTube consuming content. And the more I was making videos, the more it really allowed me to see and appreciate what it's like to be a content creator. Because boy, oh boy, when you are doing content creation and you're coming up with ideas and crafting what you want to talk about, it's like a job. It takes so much hours of your time, but when you're passionate about it, like it's great. It's a great feeling. And the more you're doing content creation, you would realize that instinctively you won't have as much time to consume content the way you used to before you were creating content. So that's something I noticed. So, what are some of the key observations I noticed from taking a break from YouTube? So, the first thing I noticed is that while I did see really great benefits to taking a break from YouTube, I also noticed that when I would reduce my screen time on YouTube, my screen time on TikTok increased. Okay. So, just last week, my phone reported that I spent about more than 8 hours on TikTok the week prior. Okay. And I guess that's to be expected because you see when you're used to doing something like being on YouTube and you take away that habit, and it's not only that you take away that habit for like a few days, but you take away that habit for like a month, almost a month. Well, you it's like your brain is used to consuming video content. So I think what was happening to me is that I was transitioning from reducing my screen time on YouTube, and as a result, I started migrating more towards TikTok. And don't get me wrong, like before taking that break from YouTube, I was still consuming content, but I just noticed that once I took that break from YouTube, my consumption of TikTok increased. But I'm not going to be too hard on myself because, like I said, it's when you're getting used to, doing something like taking a social media detox, it's something that you have to train your brain, you program your brain to do, and it takes a bit of time. So I'm not really going to um, beat myself up for that. But I do, however, moving forward, want to use social media apps with intentionality. I really want to train myself to not spend so much time on a social media app. And yeah, I'll let you know how that goes in the next months to come. The next thing I noticed after taking a break from YouTube was that I it helped me to kill comparison, and it helped me to improve the quality of my videos. So because now I could think more clearly, I noticed that I became more confident with making videos and became more confident at communicating the topics that I wanted to discuss in my videos. And it's been really fun. Like, even as I'm making this video, it's so fun to talk about my experience, right? And the confidence that I have is from the fact that I was able to just take a step back from consuming YouTube and just think about what I wanted to talk about. And this has been really helpful. It's also helped me to honestly just get better at content creation. The next observation I made from taking a break from YouTube is that it honestly caused me to consume podcast episodes on Spotify. So because I tend to watch a lot of videos that are podcast related on YouTube, what ended up happening when I was taking that break on YouTube in the beginning of summer is that it was around the same time when Spotify was incorporating podcast episodes into its platform. So that was a win-win for me because I felt like, okay, if even though if I'm not on YouTube, at least I get to watch podcast episodes from some of my favorite podcasters. So yeah, like what I also like about Spotify is that you consume content with purpose. You listen to music when you're, let's say, doing an activity, and then you also consume podcast episodes, and you are it's educational, right? You're consuming it with purpose, and once you're done with the podcast, you move on to other things. But let's say when you're watching podcast episodes on YouTube, the temptation is that, okay, after, let's say you finish watching your podcast, which by the way, podcast can be like between an hour to 2 hours to even 3 hours. After you're done with a podcast episode, you'll be tempted to watch another video. And before you know it, you spent like so many hours on the app. So the thing with YouTube is that the thing with Spotify is that when I'm on Spotify, I will just watch one podcast episode and after I'm done, like I move on to other things, right? So that has been great. So the next observation I made from taking a break from YouTube is that because I got used to taking a break from YouTube when I first started that 30-day social media detox from the app, what I noticed with time is that I became more acclimated towards taking subsequent breaks on the app. So sometimes if I'm feeling overwhelmed from consuming content on YouTube, I would take maybe a week break, a maybe breaks that last a couple of days, or it can sometimes be 2 weeks depending on how I am feeling. So something that I didn't think was possible at the time about taking a break from YouTube has now become possible because I pushed myself to take that break early in the summer, and it really was extremely beneficial for my mental health. And now I'm using the app for with fun. Like I don't have this pressure to create content if I don't feel like it, and if I don't feel like the topic is going to resonate with myself and with others. So now I use the app more with intentionality, and it's fun. And the last observation I made from taking a break from YouTube is that honestly, the effect of that has caused me to allocate more time towards doing my hobbies. For example, I allocate more time towards reading books, and it's been really a joy to do that. So if you've made it to the end of this video, I'm so glad you did. So nowhere am I saying that you should not use YouTube, and my goal isn't to make you feel guilty about the amount of time you spend on YouTube because, as I said earlier, honestly, YouTube is great. It's one of the, I would say, one of the best social media apps there is out there. And it's among my favorite apps to use. In fact, it's even changed my life. Because of YouTube, I honestly had the courage to pursue a content creation journey, and yeah, it's been really great. However, I think that it's important to use it with intentionality because when we get lost in doom scrolling and we stay on the app for hours and hours to the point where we are not present in our life, that's where we have to maybe be more aware and conscious of the time we give to this app. And yeah, I think it's important to honestly use the app and find that balance. It's about finding the right balance of how you want to use the app with more purpose, and you want to use the app in a healthy way. So if you've made it to the end of this video, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to consult my website, www.𝐓𝐈𝐌𝐄𝐒𝐓𝐀.com, to learn more. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.